Hello everyone, and welcome to my Bold and Beautiful for You channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The meticulously planned, sun-drenched ceremony at the Spencer estate, a vision of white lilies and fragile hopes, was supposed to be the final, sacred vow, the unbreakable seal on a love that had endured more betrayals and restarts than any couple could reasonably survive. But for Hope Logan, standing there in her elegant, off-the-shoulder gown, her heart a frantic bird against her ribs, this day felt different. It felt pure, a hard-won peace after the relentless emotional tempest of her recent life. Her gaze locked with Liam's, his eyes, those familiar, earnest blue pools, reflecting not just his love but a profound, weary relief at their exhausting, circular journey of him waffling between her and Steffi was finally, irrevocably over. The gentle pressure of his hands around hers an anchor in the quiet moment before the storm they didn't see coming, while Brooke, radiant and mother of the pearl pink, beamed from the front row, her own tumultuous history a ghost she was happy to bury if it meant her daughter could achieve the stable, Logan family happiness she'd always fought for, and Ridge, standing stiffly beside her, offered a supportive, if slightly strained, smile. His mind undoubtedly flickering to the corporate wars at Forrester Creations and the ever-present tension that came with being the patriarch of this endlessly dramatic clan. The officiant, a serene-faced man who was likely paid a small fortune to ignore any potential interruptions, cleared his throat, beginning the timeless words, "We are gathered here today," but the air itself seemed to thicken, charged with a premonition that slithered through the fragrant gardenia-scented breeze, a feeling that Deacon Sharp, sitting awkwardly in the back, recognized instantly, his own checkered past giving him a sixth sense for impending catastrophe, his eyes darting around the crowd of Los Angeles' elite, searching for the source of the sudden tension he felt coiling in his gut. And then, just as Liam, his voice thick with emotion, was about to utter his I do, a voice, sharp as shattered crystal and cold as betrayal, cut through the sacred silence from the back of the seated guests. "Stop. You can't marry him," and every head, as if pulled by a single, invisible string, snapped towards the intrusion, revealing a pale, trembling, but resolutely fierce Steffi Forrester, standing there not in some dramatic, scene-stealing gown, but in simple, almost frail-looking jeans and a sweater, her famous confidence replaced by a raw, palpable terror that made her seem younger, more vulnerable than anyone had seen her in years, her mascara slightly smudged, evidence of tears she'd fought and lost against. A collective, sharp gasp rippled through the crowd, a wave of shock and morbid fascination, because this was Steffi, Liam's other great love, the fiery, complicated counterpart to Hope's gentle spirit, the woman who shared a child with him, a history, a passion that had never truly been extinguished, only banked, and her presence here, now, could only mean one thing: an explosion designed to shatter this wedding into a million irreparable pieces. Hope's face, once glowing with bridal bliss, drained of all color, leaving her looking like a beautiful, porcelain statue of a bride, her hand instinctively tightening its grip on Liam's, a silent, desperate plea for him to not let this happen, not again, not today, while Liam himself froze, his body rigid with conflict, his head whipping between the woman he was seconds from vowing to spend his life with and the woman who had been the epicenter of so many of his life's greatest crises and greatest joys, his mind a whirring, panicked machine trying to calculate the fallout, his mouth slightly agape, the word Steffi, escaping his lips in a breathless, confused whisper that carried more weight than any wedding vow he'd prepared. "What is the meaning of this, Steffi?" Ridge's voice boomed, authority masking his own deep-seated panic as he rose from his seat, his fatherly instincts warring with his desire for this damn wedding to just be over so everyone could move on, but Steffi's eyes, wide and pleading, never left Liam's, ignoring her father, ignoring the horrified stare of her mother, Taylor, who looked ready to leap up and physically drag her daughter away, ignoring the seething glare from Brooke, who was mentally cursing the entire Forrester bloodline. "I'm so sorry, Liam," Steffi choked out, her voice cracking under the immense pressure, a single tear tracing a path through the subtle makeup on her cheek. "I didn't want to do this here, today, I swear I didn't. I tried to find another way, another time, but I couldn't. I couldn't let you make a vow that would be based on a lie of omission." Hope found her voice then, a trembling, wounded sound that was barely more than a whisper. "What lie, Steffi?" What could you possibly have to say that is so important it couldn't wait one more hour? The entire garden was a tableau of suspended animation, the guests leaning forward in their chairs, the camera crew for the wedding video silently panning to capture every micro-expression, the very birds in the trees seeming to have stilled their songs to listen. Steffi took a shaky step forward, her hands clenching and unclenching at her sides, and then she delivered the line, the sentence, the single, devastating truth that would rip through the foundation of Liam and Hope's relationship like a bunker-busting bomb, her voice dropping to a haunted, hushed tone that somehow carried to every corner of the silent estate. I'm pregnant, Liam. The two words hung in the air, tangible and destructive, a pregnancy bombshell that detonated with the force of a nuclear warhead right in the middle of the wedding aisle. And, it's yours. The silence that followed was absolute, a vacuum of sound so profound you could hear the rustle of fabric as people shifted, the soft, horrified intake of Brooke's breath, the faint, strangled sound of denial that escaped Hope's lips. Liam looked as if he'd been physically struck, his body jerking back a step, his face a mask of utter, uncomprehending shock, his brain refusing to process the information, the timeline, the implications, his world narrowing to Steffi's tear-filled eyes and the earth-shattering reality she had just unleashed upon them all. No, he finally managed, the word a broken sigh. No, Steffi, that's not possible. It was one time, weeks ago, after the gala, we were both emotional, it was a mistake, but his protest was weak, pathetic, because he knew, with a sickening, sinking certainty in the pit of his stomach, that it was not only possible, it was devastatingly, life-alteringly true, the memory of that night, a blur of champagne, old regrets, and the magnetic, complicated pull they always had towards each other, flooding back to him with horrifying clarity. Hope wrenched her hand from his as if his touch had burned her, stumbling back a step, the beautiful bouquet of calla lilies falling from her nerveless fingers to land with a soft, tragic thud on the manicured grass, her eyes, wide with a pain so profound it seemed to physically shrink her, darting between Liam's horrified, guilty face and Steffi's defiant, terrified one, the two people who had been the axis on which her entire adult life had spun, and in that moment, she wasn't the hopeful bride, she was just Hope Logan, the woman who was once again, for the 1000th time, not enough, her love story once again revealed to be a pathetic, laughable farce built on the shifting sands of Liam Spencer's inability to be faithful. You slept with her? The question was ripped from her, a raw, guttural sound of betrayal that was more accusation than inquiry. After everything, after all our promises, after we decided to do this, to get married, you were with her? The facade of the perfect wedding, the elegant guests, the beautiful setting, all of it melted away, leaving only the raw, ugly, human wreckage of three people whose lives were inextricably, painfully intertwined. Liam, finally finding some semblance of coherence, reached for her. Hope, please, let me explain, it was a moment of weakness, it didn't mean anything, it was before we officially set the date, I was confused, but his excuses sounded hollow, even to his own ears, rendered meaningless and pathetic by the undeniable, biological fact of Steffi's pregnancy, a child that would forever be a living, breathing link between him and Steffi, a sibling for Kelly, a permanent barrier that would forever stand between him and any future he could ever hope to build with Hope. Don't touch me. Hope cried out, her voice cracking with a sob she could no longer contain, recoiling from him as the first hot tears spilled over and streamed down her cheeks, tracing paths through her perfectly applied makeup. A moment of weakness? A mistake? That's what you called a woman carrying your child? Our entire marriage was supposed to be built on truth, Liam. On finally putting the past behind us. And all this time, you knew, you both knew. She turned her furious, shattered gaze to Steffi. How could you? How could you stand there and let me plan this wedding, let me believe in a future, while you were carrying this secret inside you? Steffi, now crying in earnest, wrapped her arms protectively around her still flat stomach, a gesture that was not lost on anyone. I didn't know how to tell you. I was trying to figure it out. But when I saw you here, in that dress, about to pledge your life to him, I couldn't let you do it, Hope. I couldn't let him make a vow to you that would be a lie from its very first second. This isn't just about us anymore, she said, her voice gaining a sliver of steel as she looked back at Liam. This is about a baby. our baby. And with that, the dynamic shifted irrevocably. This was no longer a simple love triangle, it was a family drama with a new, innocent life at its center. The focus was no longer on Hope's shattered heart or Liam's paralyzing guilt, but on the unborn child, a new heir to the Spencer Forster-Logan saga, a living consequence that would dictate alliances, fortunes, and heartbreaks for years to come. Ridge looked from his devastated daughter to his heartbroken almost stepdaughter, his face a granite mask of paternal frustration, while Taylor moved to Steffi's side, her arm going around her shoulders, a united Forrester front against the tidal wave of Logan anguish. Brooke was at Hope's side in an instant, pulling her trembling daughter into a fierce, protective embrace, shooting a look of pure, undiluted hatred towards both Liam and Steffi, her own history of battling for Ridge's heart against Taylor mirroring this nightmare in a way that was almost too cruel to be coincidence. The wedding was over. There would be no idos, no pronouncement of husband and wife, no joyous celebration. The beautiful archway stood as an empty, mocking frame for a family in ruins. The guests began to murmur, to shift uncomfortably, the spectacle having moved from thrilling drama to deeply uncomfortable tragedy. Liam stood utterly alone in the space between his two great loves, a man trapped in a prison of his own making, his future with Hope incinerated in the blaze of Steffi's revelation, and his future with Steffi now a complicated, obligation-filled path he never intended to walk down again, his face a hollowed-out portrait of a man who had, in one fell swoop, lost everything he thought he wanted, while gaining a responsibility that terrified him. Hope, sobbing into her mother's shoulder, felt the last vestiges of her faith in love, in Liam, in happy endings, dissolve into nothingness, the name Hope itself feeling like a cruel joke. And Steffi, held by her mother, felt no victory, only the crushing weight of a future she hadn't planned for, a life forever tied to a man who looked at her now not with love, but with shell-shocked horror, the pregnancy bomb she had dropped having destroyed not just a wedding, but every relationship in its blast radius, leaving nothing but scorched earth and the daunting, terrifying question for everyone involved: what in the world happens now? The fallout from Steffi's announcement is immediate and visceral, a shockwave of pure, undiluted chaos that obliterates the serene facade of the wedding. The air, once filled with the soft scent of gardenias and the promise of forever, is now thick with the acrid smell of betrayal and shattered dreams. Hope's knees buckle, the intricate boning of her couture wedding gown the only thing keeping her upright as Brooke's arms tighten around her, a human shield against the shrapnel of this emotional bomb. "Look at me, sweetheart, don't you look at them," Brooke coos, her voice a fierce, maternal whisper against Hope's ear, but Hope's wide, devastated eyes are locked on Liam, searching his face for any sign that this is a horrific dream, a cruel prank, anything but the reality that her fiancé, the man whose child she had once dreamed of carrying, has impregnated her greatest rival, her stepsister, the eternal obstacle in her path to happiness. Liam is paralyzed, a statue of a groom carved from guilt and panic, his mind reeling through a frantic, internal montage of that night, the gala, the champagne, Steffi's tears over a business setback, the comforting hug that lasted a moment too long, the familiar scent of her perfume, the way old habits and older passions can resurface in a vulnerable moment, a mistake he had compartmentalized and buried deep, convinced it was a one-time regression, a ghost from his past that would never haunt his future. He had lied to himself, and in doing so, he had built this entire wedding, this altar to his love for Hope, on a foundation of quicksand. "You knew?" Hope's voice is a broken whisper, but it cuts through the murmuring crowd like a scalpel. "Liam, did you know?" His silence, the agonized, trapped look in his eyes, is all the answer she needs. It wasn't just Steffi's secret, it was his, too. A fresh wave of nausea washes over her. The betrayal is a two-headed monster. From the sidelines, Ridge's initial shock curdles into a simmering, protective rage. He strides forward, his tuxedo feeling like a costume for a play that has just descended into brutal reality. "Steffi, this is not the place," he commands, his voice low and thunderous, his hand reaching for her elbow to guide her away, to contain the damage, to protect his daughter from the venomous glares of the Logan contingent. But Taylor, always Steffi's fiercest defender, steps in front of him, her posture rigid. "No, Ridge. She did the right thing." As painful as it is, the truth had to come out. Liam had a right to know he's going to be a father again. Hope had a right to know the man she was marrying was already tied to another woman for the rest of his life through a child. The word child hangs in the air, a new, immutable fact that changes the entire calculus of their lives. This isn't just an affair, it's a lineage. It's Christmases, birthdays, parent-teacher conferences, a perpetual connection that no divorce, no breakup, no amount of anger can ever sever. Liam finally finds his voice, a ragged, desperate thing. Hope, please. I love you. I was going to marry you today. What happened with Steffi, it was meaningless, it was a moment of insanity, it didn't change my feelings for you, not at all. His plea is perhaps the most damaging thing he could have said. Hope lets out a sound that is half sob, half hysterical laugh. Meaningless? A moment of insanity? She pulls away from Brooke, standing on her own trembling power, a queen of ruins. That moment of insanity has created a life, Liam. A baby. How can you stand there and call the mother of your child meaningless? What does that make this baby? A consequence? A problem? She gestures wildly at Steffi, who flinches as if struck. In trying to save himself with hope, Liam has only managed to insult and devalue Steffi and the life she carries, proving himself to be a coward trapped between two women, incapable of handling the devastating consequences of his own actions. The guests are now openly gathering their things, a slow, awkward exodus of uncomfortable silence and whispered judgments. I always knew it wouldn't last, one society matron murmurs to her husband. The Spencer Forster-Logan drama is more reliable than the tides. Deacon Sharp watches it all from the back, a grim understanding on his face. He's been the bomb thrower and the collateral damage in this world. He knows that this isn't the end, it's the beginning of a new, more brutal chapter. The wedding is a total loss. The pristine white chairs are empty, the string quartet has long since stopped playing, and the five-tiered wedding cake stands as a grotesque, uneaten monument to a celebration that died before it began. The scene narrows to the central five figures in the wreckage. Hope, her makeup a tragic watercolor of tears and despair, turns her back on Liam, a final, silent dismissal. It's over, she whispers, the words not meant for anyone but herself, yet they echo in the hollow space between them. It's finally, truly over. She allows Brooke to lead her away, not towards the limousine meant for the blissful newlyweds, but towards a waiting car, a retreat to the Logan house, to a life that has been irrevocably broken. Liam makes a move to follow, but Ridge's heavy hand on his shoulder stops him cold. Let her go, Liam, Ridge says, his voice devoid of its usual bluster, filled only with a weary finality. You've done enough. Liam is left standing alone in the middle of the aisle, the discarded bouquet at his feet. He looks from the retreating form of Hope, the love of his life whose heart he has systematically destroyed, to Steffi, who is now being comforted by her mother, the mother of his future child, a child conceived in a moment of weakness that has cost him everything. He has no home to go to, no future to look forward to, only the crushing weight of his dual betrayals. He is utterly, completely alone. Steffi looks up and meets his gaze, and in her eyes, he sees no triumph, no victory, only the same devastating loss and a fear of the complicated, painful future they now must face together, bound forever by the pregnancy bomb that didn't just destroy a wedding, it detonated the very fabric of their lives, leaving everyone to pick up the radioactive pieces in the chilling, uncertain silence of what comes next.